So, we know that for some reason, Mariko tried to kill herself. We know that for some reason, the Yakuza are after her. We know that for some reason, her father's mad at her.
Yep.
And we know that she has some boyfriend.
Yes.
Fiance. Oh, and yeah. That's what we've gotten so far. She has a fiance of some kind.
So, you don't know why the hell the Yakuza want her. And it turns out to be a really dumb reason that has nothing to do with the plot.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. The main plot of this movie, I feel, is the story of how this Yashida becomes obsessed with Wolverine and obsessed with mutants.
And obsessed with staying alive.
Obsessed with staying alive, wants to turn himself into a mutant somehow, and he kind of collects mutants. Yukio in particular, he's like, oh, I like mutants, you'll be my pet mutant, and you'll play with my daughter.
Yes. They do kind of explain it that way.
And then, to jump ahead a little bit, the only reason the Yakuza are involved at all is, A, I guess they drive the next bit of the plot along, but B, the husband, or rather the fiancé...
Yeah, the fiancé hired them to do all that.
The fiancé is some big guy in, the police force in Japan, and
it's like
he had the arranged marriage with the Yoshida family because it got Yoshida some political ties, and he was supposed to get a buttload of money for it. Mm-hmm. Basically, he was being paid to marry the daughter of this family. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out Yoshida spent all of his money trying to become a mutant.
Right.
And had almost bankrupted the company. So for revenge, he calls out the Yakuza on his fiancé.
Yeah.
Everyone in this movie wants to kill her.
Yeah.
The fiancé wants to kill Mariko because he wasn't paid. Her father wants to kill Mariko because
she's going to get everything, inherit the entire thing instead of him. So he wants to kill her so that he gets it again.
So for the sake of, while we're explaining this, you and the audience not being confused, we're explaining what all of this shit's going to mean, because otherwise you're just sitting there going, yeah, but what about why?
Basically, the next hour and a half
is
of this
everyone
movie
trying
is
to kill
everyone in
her.
Japan attempting to kill Wolverine and a Japanese lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, skipping over the inconsequential stuff, the Yakuza attack
the funeral
of Yoshida,
Right.
who's not actually dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they introduced the Black Clan.
Yep.
Yes. And the only...
They introduce it in, the most un-ninja-like way anyway.
You will never find me!
You'll never find me on this bright sunny day on top of a roof with no cover.
I like how Wolverine spots him and he just ducks his...
He's like, oh no, you didn't see me!
He just, hides his eyes, but the top of his head and his arms are still sticking out. And he's like, if I can't see you, you can't see me! That was a horrible shot, by the way. The roof shot that they made it look like maybe he was hiding behind that eave. It looked like he might be hiding, but then they show you the view from Wolverine, and he's clearly visible, sitting on the roof to everyone, not just Wolverine. Everyone must be looking up there going, who the fuck is that idiot?
No, but only Wolverine and Blood see it.
Alright, so...
It's a well-known movie fact. People don't look up.
Or use a peripheral vision in any manner.
So another thing from that scene, when you're a filmmaker, you have control over every aspect of the movie. And that includes sound. And you have a ninja, and you shoot footage of a ninja going across a rooftop, and you decide to leave in.
Click, click, click,
click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. I'm a ninja, guys. I'm on the roof.
As he loudly stomps.
He's not a very good ninja.
Not even partially stealthily. And this is also the first scene in the movie where we get something that becomes a recurring theme, which is the unnecessary flip.
That made me laugh so many times.
Like, oh man, I could just go down here, or I could do a fucking flip barrel roll over there.
So,
a barrel roll, that's what they do. Because they don't do a front flip, they do a sideways flip for no reason. No reason at all. It's like a 2-foot jump from here to there. And it's less dangerous to flip sideways while you're doing it.
Yeah, according to the choreographers of this movie, it's much less... the most efficient way from point A to point B is a sideways flip. There's another scene that comes later on where one of the ninja he's not even going over anything.
No, he's just going by a doorway.
No. He's to the side of the doorway. He needs to shut a door. He flips, shuts the door.
There's also the point where, like, one ninja, like, cracks his neck, jumps way high up in the air, side flips, like, 2 or 3 times over a closed door.
Yeah, so unnecessary flips are introduced in the fight scene where the Yakuza are all trying to kill Mariko.
They've also introduced the bow, which is apparently super important in this movie, because everybody has a bow, because apparently guns aren't useful enough.
So,
well, to be completely fair, the Yakuza used a lot of bullets and did not stop.
They did. You're right.
Wolverine.
Yeah.
And then later, a whole bunch of arrows did a really good job.
Bullets didn't stop him when he was mortal. Arrows did when he was immortal. So clearly, arrows are superior.
Arrows are freaking
awesome.
awesome.
I've got to say that I appreciated in this movie when the people shot at something and actually hit it.
Well, you can do that to Wolverine because he can just regenerate. It's completely... It's as good as a miss.
Even when he was mortal, they shot... He's got, like, 7 bullet wounds.
He does.
And in most movies, like, they're shooting, they're like, bam, 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 and they don't hit shit. No one hits anything.
No.
But in this movie, they hit stuff. So I was pretty...
Well, they can get away with that because Wolverine's Wolverine.
Yes.
I guess.
So
you can get away with that anyway where Wolverine is portrayed in... Otherwise.
So this is also the scene where we learn that Wolverine has in fact been tampered with. His healing has been suppressed, and he is mortal, because as the scene progresses, he's looking more hurt, and later on he kind of goes, what the heck is going on? Why does my chest still hurt? And it's still bleeding. And that's a problem. So...
Sorry, it's getting warm.
It is getting warm.
Yes,
So,
it is.
progressing along, because we're gonna be here till midnight at this rate, he's then... There's a big chase scene. He fights and kills a whole bunch of people, and I'm asking the people around me, I'm like, why is he running? He's Wolverine. He just killed like 20 of them. There's 3 people chasing him.
Well, he's protecting someone.
But there's someone who's obviously supposed to be kidnapped. That person isn't going to be actually in danger, but I guess, whatever.
Well, so
for the sake of...
The alternative to this is how many times in a movie have you seen the hero say, go ahead without me?
True.
And then something terrible happens.
And then she gets too far away, and she gets kidnapped anyway.
Yep.
And sure, the guy killed those 4 people who were running after her, but you missed the 2 that were up ahead.
Yeah. So, anyway, they get away temporarily, they get on a train, and then as soon as they said, this is one of those bullet trains, right? The ones that go 300 miles an hour, I'm like, fight on the roof. Is happening.
Yes.
It's definitely happening.
This is...
Oh man, and then it became physics train to fight.
Yes.
It is the setup for the true action set piece of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is if you've seen the trailers, the fight on the top of the train is briefly detailed in the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the effects are kind of when some of the stuff goes blurring by, it looks a little bit fake, but still an exciting action scene.
Absolutely, very well choreographed.
Very enjoyable.
It was kind of the only action scene in the movie, that whole Yakuza attack and then the train scene after.
Yeah.
And the train scene's the best one. It's really good. It's almost worth, if you're not paying too much to go see the movie, if you catch a matinee, almost worth it for that scene, because it's really cool. And when I'm saying worth a ticket, I mean it's worth seeing this in the theater as opposed to on home video later.
Right.
It's not going to be, it's a summer popcorn movie. The reason that you go and see it on the big screen is because there's big effects and big action.
Yeah, it's the experience.
Yeah.
Yep. So, there's a nice, cool fight scene on the roof. I like when he gets back down to her, and he collapses back into the seat, and she's like, what's wrong? Like, he's just fought off, 6 Yakuza, including 2 on the roof of a moving train at 300 miles an hour, and she's like, what's wrong? Now, this introduces...
Which, again, an established joke. It was funny.
Yes.
Because you see her at various points not paying attention, and then he sits back down, and it pays off when she's like, what's wrong?
Yes. And that was actually, there's some really good parts in there, but this introduces the first plot hole where, okay, he's just discovered that he's mortal, and he's hurt, and his stuff isn't closing. He continues to use his claws, and then they go back in, and his skin instantly heals.
Well,
see, I don't think he was, per se, completely mortal. It was just restricting his powers.
I guess.
I feel like that's what they were trying to establish, was that he could still kind of do his thing.
Because he definitely seemed to heal a lot faster from bullet wounds and knife wounds than you
Yes.
normally would.
He can still kind
just
of,
not instantly.
He could still kind of tank hits, but not the way that he used to.
Right.
But I see what you mean. It's depending on what comic book you read, people have different takes on it. Wolverine's a really old character. He's been written a lot of different ways. But I think most of the time, there was a great panel I was shown once where somebody asked him if it hurts when when the claws come out. And he's like, yeah, every time. Because every time it's just shooting out through his skin. And Hugh Jackman plays it up really well in the movies usually. Like, when the claws come out, there's usually a moment where he's like...
Yeah.
He's like, this hurts.
And I like how he, like, throws his arms out, like he's using the inertia of his arm movement to throw his arms out in order to help get the claws out. Like, obviously, he can retract and extend the claws on his own, but in order to break the skin, he needs that extra oomph from the inertia, I think, to help.
Let's be honest, to make it look cool.
You're right, it makes it look cool. Okay, so anyway, they get to where they're going. They're in, like, first they go to that love house. What is it? Like the Love Hotel?
Which, that was
a funny little scene.
It was almost a useless set of scenes, though.
True.
It was,
there's
the
a lot
only
of
purpose of that was for Hugh Jackman to collapse and her to take care of him.
Yeah, no, like, from that point on, like, just to the next kidnapping is just character development.
Yeah.
After nothing else.
Which, by character development, we means that Wolverine gets to bone Mariko.
Yes.
Basically that.
And...
And speaking of which, they telegraphed it with the most stereotypical scene that always happens right before that. Oh shit, guys, it's about to rain. They don't get back in time, and they're soaked, and they're in their night clothes. Or in the other pair of clothes in the room over.
And she
every time.
And she puts him in this, like, traditional Japanese outfit, and he comes in, and he's, like, just tied it in a rough knot.
Oh, yeah, and then she cares, and she does things for him that he cannot do himself because he's inept at those things.
And like, they don't even play it at all subtle. She gets this close to his face, and she's like, here, let me fiddle with this thing around your waist while I talk to you really close.
It's extremely poorly written. Like, that is the worst.
Oh, no, I saw it rain, I'm like, God damn it, now I know this is coming, I don't want to sit through this shit right now.
Yeah. It was a bit of a slow part for the movie, but then she gets kidnapped again, and it's okay!
Well, I'd like to point out something really funny here, if you know Wolverine's character. He's always dating people who are really young, even though he's actually really old. And Mariko seems to be far too okay with the fact that she was told stories about him when she was a child. Yeah. And just because he looks the same doesn't mean he's not way older than you. This is one of your grandfather's war buddies that you've just gotten down with.
And she talks to him about it after the fact, too.
And she talks about it like it's totally okay.
It's like
Grandpa
your
used to
actual...
tell me stories about you.
It's like your actual great-grandfather or great-grandmother dating like a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's not actually creepy because it's just Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. So...
But when you think about the character of Wolverine, he's always dating people who are, like, barely legal.
Mm-hmm.
He's been around.
Yep.
I guess maybe because he's from days where that was okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe he's from a time when you got married when you were 16, so he's like, what? She's marrying age.
So... They come and kidnap her after the sex scene. Well, the lack of they do that thing where they imply it, and then they cut to the smoking scene without any smoking anymore because nobody smokes anymore.
Yes, there's laying in bed in their pajamas,
and
or rather, she's in pajamas and he's shirtless, and him being shirtless, I think, is the key.
Yeah, and she's
shirtless.
interrogating him. Who is Jean? You were always like your nightmares about Jean.
Also, perfect chance to say who the fuck Jean is.
Yes!
Yeah!
I was waiting for that. I was like, finally, we're going to have some, because I can't remember. Nope, not going to do that. Instead, fall back asleep, get kidnapped again. He catches the one guy, like, who he managed to pry off the car as it was leaving with the girl, with Mariko. So then he does some interrogation techniques to learn what's up. They go and catch...
surprise, surprise. This isn't the Yakuza anymore. we've apparently already dealt with the Yakuza.
Yakuza are done.
And the people who have kidnapped her work for her father.
Yes.
So I was at first
Wait a
really
minute.
confused,
No,
because it's just
yes.
No, we're done with Yakuza now. Now we're going to.
But then
the
how come
fiancé.
he? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
we're
but
going to
he
the
went to the
fiancé. But if the
fiancé
people,
after
but how does? Yeah, that's what I got.
Nah.
Maybe he got nothing out of the interrogation, so we went to the fiancé for more information. I think that's what happened. It's like, this guy didn't give me anything.
The guy said he wasn't ever going to tell him, but then he brought out the claws.
And
Yeah,
it
and then
sounded
then
like
he
he
said
killed
a
him
name.
instantly.
Then he said a name. So wait, did he like hire his own company people to do that? then?
So another plot hole here. If he hired the Yakuza to kill Mariko, did he also just hire the Yakuza to take them back to Mariko's father? It wouldn't seem to make sense that you would put out a hit on
No, that's
somebody.
why I got the impression that he was out of leads. He tried to interrogate that guy, but I'm pretty sure he wound up killing
No,
him.
he said something.
No. He said,
I thought
like,
he
I'll
was-
never talk to Gaijin, and then...
then he said a name.
I don't think he said a
No,
name.
he brings out the claws. You hear
And
like
then he
a,
stabs
squish
him or
noise.
something.
I just thought
But
it was a
then-
yell
but
of
then you
pain. I didn't think it
hear-
was a name.
Then you hear Wolverine say like something to the effect of like, "Now who?"
Okay, so anyway,
And
then
he
he
goes
talks
silent.
to Yukio. Yukio comes to see him and says, "Listen, I saw that you're going to die." And Wolverine's like, "Don't care," going after her. And so he tells her, like, "I got no leads, so I think we're going to go after the fiancé." I'm pretty sure that's what happened, but for whatever reason, they go after the fiancé.
Yeah.
And there's a great scene there because they show up and the fiance's like got a couple of hookers with him and they're like, "Get out," and they leave. But my favorite part of this scene is when he tells them, "You have 10 words to tell me why, you know, why
you're trying to kill
orchestrated
Mariko,
this."
or
So why you put out a hit on Mariko is what he said.
yeah, your fiance.
Because at this point, he seems to know that he's responsible for hiring the Yakuza.
Right. So
Which-
he figured that out maybe from the interrogation. They didn't explain it.
But why didn't the Yakuza kill her then? I don't know.
That's
I
where
guess-
this is getting confusing. But anyway, he says, "You have 10 words to explain this to me." And the guy's like, "I don't know, bam!" Punches him in the nose. He looks over at Yukio. "How many words was that?" 9. He's like, "Okay, now you have 1 word." And what does he say? I don't remember, but it was great.
He says the
Says the
father's
father's
name.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. He says the
Says his
father's
father's name, then he does some other shit, and then Wolverine just
and
tosses
then
him off.
throws him out of...
Right.
He just like, "Okay, that's enough." And he throws him off the balcony and just turns and walks away. And then Yukio goes over and looks down and sees that there's a pool, and he's fallen in the pool, and there's people going in there helping him out. And she's like, "How did you know there was a pool down there?" He's like, "I didn't know about a pool."
Yeah. Well, he says it much meaner than that. He's like, "I didn't."
Yeah.
Like, I wish there wasn't a pool, but I don't have time.
Yeah.
I love how the guy, like, before he falls, is just like, "Oh my god, you said you weren't going to throw me out the window." And
Like,
he's
too bad I'm
"I didn't
Wolverine."
Like what you said.
Yeah, so that's another thing. A very well set up joke.
Yes.
He says at the beginning, the punishment for not explaining this satisfactorily in 10 words
Is
is,
I throw you out
I
the
will
window."
throw you out this window. And then he doesn't satisfy Wolverine, and Wolverine throws him out the window.
It's very
He also
reminiscent...
used more than 10 words, essentially.
Yeah, that's true. It's very reminiscent to me of the scene in Commando where Arnold Schwarzenegger says, "I'm going to kill you last," or something, and then he gets the guy and he's holding him over the cliff, and he says, "Remember when I said I'd kill you last? I lied." He just drops him or something. That just flashed into my mind when I saw that. But anyway,
Yes,
so
very
now
well.
he goes back to the father's place. And we cut back there before Wolverine gets there, right? That's the next scene. And we see
the father explaining...
Mariko,
Yeah.
Mariko?
has now confronting her father, and her father's explaining all of his evil plans.
His poor motivation.
His poor motivation. Meanwhile, all of his guards are getting taken out by the unnecessary flip ninjas.
Yes, those ones.
So you find out that for some reason the unnecessary flip ninjas are working for Viper.
Yes.
And
Yeah, well, they're working for the grandfather.
Yes, they're working for the grandfather under Viper's
For
command.
they say for the family,
Yes.
essentially. And the Viper, I think, shows up in that scene. Yeah, because she poisons him. And the boyfriend from the past, the archer from the roof, shows back up.
Yes,
And
the very inconspicuous, or
the very conspicuous ninja on the roof. He shows back up, and he takes Mariko, and he tells her it's going to be okay. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Viper works for the family, don't worry about it." Like, why don't you just explain that the grandfather is still alive, and he's trying to create immortality. No, because the movie doesn't let you explain to the audience, and therefore you can't explain it to Mariko. Ugh. So Viper shows up and poisons the son of the Yoshido guy.
Yes, Mariko's father.
Mariko's father. That's the better way to put it. Poisons Mariko's father, and he gets like this green stuff on him, and then he it looks like he goes off and dies, but he doesn't. He just gets green stuff, and he has no effect. He's like, I'll just put this ninja armor on and fight Wolverine.
Everyone. By the way, everyone else's encounter with this green shit, who has not been Wolverine, instantly dead.
Yep.
On the spot, right there.
But she is a master of poison.
Until she's like, wait, no, I take that back.
I feel like she's got control over the dosage and how much she can do.
Well, no, she can, whatever she does, she can also take it back, because she did it to the boyfriend also. Yeah. And she's like, poof. And
yep.
Yeah,
here's an antidote.
Very confusing to me.
And I'm like, okay, so we know you can do that. That's nice.
So, this scene was okay. It was a good fight scene. Yukio trying to protect Wolverine while he's tearing his own chest open to get the thing out. So that was very cool.
This was really cool. Yukio's told Wolverine that she's seen a vision of his death, and he's holding his own heart, and he dies.
And it's not beating.
Yes, and it's not beating. Wolverine looks at those jars from earlier in the movie that held the Matrix drill bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And sees that they're not there, and he puts 2 and 2 together, and he goes, fuck, and he sits down on the
examination thing.
He sits down on
on the pin table.
He sits down down on the pin art table. And he brings it over, he scans it over his body, and he's like, attached to my heart is one of these things. And he's like, you might want to look away, and he takes out just the middle claw, and just slices open his chest and reaches in there. And then somebody knocks away the thing he was using to look inside of him, and he's like, that's not a good time for this.
I can't see, because he's actively looking at an x-ray machine, or whatever.
And he can see his hand because it's got adamantium in it, so it shows up on the x-ray machine easily.
Imagine playing a claw machine, but in your chest. Ugh. And that's what Wolverine
is now doing. You can't see.
Or playing Operation Blindfolded. Also a good thing. But anyway, so the Mariko's father shows up having grabbed his samurai gear for some reason. They while Mariko while Yukio and him are in that, they show the samurai armor and somebody grab it, and you're like, I wonder who that is. And then
I can explain to you why he's wearing it. He's wearing it because this movie loves symbols that aren't explained in the plot. So arrows are disproportionately used as weaponry in this movie, not because it makes any sense that all of these people would be expert archers in this day and age, but because they have a symbol of a arrow with poison, and it hits the bear, and the bear is Wolverine, and then later actual Wolverine gets hit with arrows that have poison on them, and it's drawing parallels between things that you've seen before. And Yoshida makes a really big point of calling Wolverine a Ronin. He compares him directly to a samurai who has lost his master. And this whole movie is one of the reasons I enjoyed it so much was all of they're couching a lot of the symbolism of this movie on things that American audiences recognize as Japanese staples, and also on kind of Japanese history and tradition.
Right.
And comparing Wolverine's soldier-like lifestyle to that kind of lifestyle. It's basically, Wolverine's a follower of Bushido in some sense, in the logic of this film.
All right.
So the reason why he fights a samurai is because Wolverine is a samurai.
Aha! So there wasn't a good reason or motivation for Yukio's Mariko's father to do that, but for the movie, there was a good reason to do that.
I found it not taking me out of the movie because the emotional motivation of Wolverine fighting a samurai was it was apparent enough from the rest of the movie for me not to lose my suspension of disbelief.
Okay.
It made sense within not actual logic, where this man doesn't need samurai armor that's half on to go fight an enemy.
And apparently...
But it makes sense in the emotional logic of the film.
At this point, the poison has run its course. He was never supposed to die from it, I guess. I don't know why she bothered poisoning him at all, if it was just going to turn part of his face green and then he was going to have full fighting skills.
Yeah, he was surprisingly capable after being hit with
Because
well, I would imagine it's lethal
because
poison.
she didn't care about killing him, she just wanted Mariko. So she took Mariko and left. There was no reason to kill him, really. There was no reason not to kill him. It's not a huge plot hole, but maybe.
Anyways, moving on.
So, Wolverine fights the samurai. He wins. Does he kill him?
Yeah.
I think he did.
Yeah, he ended up killing him after he stabbed him through the chest, and he's like, whatever.
Yes.
Oh, no, didn't he give him a chance? He gave him a chance to walk away,
Right.
and instead he turns back and fight.
Classic superhero trope of you give the bad guy a chance to live, bad guy tries to backstab you one more time, which leads to his death.
But in this case, I feel
Wolverine
like
still
it
takes
was...
him out.
Right. In this case, I think that was a representation of seppuku, because Mariko's father, at this point, knows he's beaten. He's stabbed Wolverine twice at the same time with both of his swords, and Wolverine just goes, no. And he just breaks one, he throws the other one.
Yes.
He's technically won the fight multiple times, but Wolverine cheats. So
By being Wolverine.
Yes.
So now that Wolverine lets him go, he has to know if he turns around and fights him again. It doesn't matter if you have the advantage. It doesn't matter if you catch him by surprise. You're not going to win. So I think that's him committing suicide and dying an honorable death in battle.
I don't think so. I think he was still supposed to be a dick.
You're just supposed to be a stupid dick then.
But you make an interesting point where the sword, where it ends up in Wolverine's chest, is exactly where the Japanese soldiers from earlier in the movie had stabbed themselves when they had given up. So it might have been there more to represent Wolverine's not done yet.
Yeah.
He's been stabbed through the chest and he takes the sword out and he's going to keep fighting. So I don't think it was supposed to mean anything for Mariko's father, because he's a dumb throwaway character with no motivations. And
You're right. They didn't develop him at all. They just made him out to be a dick. At the very first time you meet him, he's fighting and beating the crap out of his sparring partner, and even takes his helmet off in like contempt, like I don't need this. Yeah. And then the second time you see him, he slaps his own daughter across the face.
Yeah, so
when she's just trying to warn him of a horrible circumstance that she doesn't want to pass anyway, and he's like, wham!
He's not supposed to be a good guy.
No.
Yeah.
So anyway, Wolverine's got his powers back, and he goes to take on the Flip Ninjas, and he gets there on a bike, of course. He has to
in the middle of a snowstorm, by the way.
In the middle of a snowstorm.
What was it? Winter? Like the rest of the time?
No.
You know what?
Yeah, wait a second.
Everybody
what the fuck
was
season
wearing-
was this?
He's on
Did
top
this
of a
occur in?
mountain.
Everyone was wearing jackets, kind of.
No, some of them
Except for Viper.
Except for Viper, who's always in the sluttiest thing imaginable.
Mariko, but maybe that's because they're in the South. Because they go all... Because when
they
they're
went to
in
the
Nagasaki,
north?
she wears like a sundress.
Remember they said
And then
that
that's when it was
the
gonna rain and
building
they
was
had
on
sex.
top of the huge mountain.
Yeah.
So, I guess a quick note about the climate of Japan. It's kind of like the East Coast of the United States. In that the northern parts kind of on almost the same latitude as like a New England. The southern parts are, I think it gets down to like a North Carolina-ish, Florida-ish latitude.
Okay, so anyway,
Or,
he
no,
gets there.
not Florida. Like North Carolina-ish latitude at the bottom.
Right.
Like Maine-ish at the top.
So it doesn't usually snow in the South. Always will snow in the winter in the North.
Yeah, that kind of
So anyway, Wolverine gets to the place where Mariko's been taken, and we got a glimpse of the samurai armor Iron Man thing in the plans, and we get to here, and Wolverine's like, you didn't bring enough guys, or is that all you brought, or something like that?
And then they just take him down instantly.
Then they're like,
No, because they fight, like, originally, we're just gonna take him down, because they think his powers are gone. And then when he gets one slash across the forehead, he turns around and it's heels up. The boyfriend ninja's like, oh shit! And that's when he's like, back off! Abort! Use Plan B! Get out all the arrows!
By the way,
lines."
Plan B was super fucking effective.
Yeah, poison him! Apparently his healing powers don't go to poison?
They had some poison from Viper.
Right.
So Viper had cooked it up specifically to stop Wolverine.
Right, so maybe it's super potent or something. Because I know he was very careful.
She makes a very direct point of saying that her powers allow her to craft poisons for specific people.
Ah.
It was a poison designed to put down Wolverine.
Right.
Why she gave it to the boyfriend kind of makes sense.
Because she was worried about him getting his powers back somehow, I guess.
Yes. So, in case of Wolverine, break vial.
Even though she very clearly says to Wolverine that she didn't expect him to, like, reach into his own heart and rip a bug out.
Yeah, she was very impressed by that. A bold move!
Yeah,
A bold
still.
Well played, sir. Well played.
It at least makes her semi-competent that she has a backup plan. She's still just a mean-spirited bitch who's only there to be a mean-spirited bitch. But some forethought.
The other thing that I didn't like about this scene is Wolverine's getting shot, and I like that arrows miss. Like, for the first little while, you hear the clinking of arrows that are missing Wolverine, and that was great. If every single arrow hit on the mark, you can't always hit somebody, a running target, from 200, yards, and every single ninja's a dead shot. No, some of them miss. Good. But then he gets hit with one, he turns around to cut the rope, and another one hits him in the chest. He cuts that rope and starts running again. Then he gets hit again, and again, and again, and he's like, no, cutting it wasn't effective before.
And then
I'll just run instead. And he just keeps going until he
eventually-
finally gets hit with
poison
the
arrows.
poison arrow because he's standing still because he's got 12 people behind him.
I thought
And
it was more that he was getting hit too much too quickly.
he's got claws. He just turns around and goes shunk.
it didn't matter until the poison arrow happens. And
Right.
the poison arrow's there to draw the parallel between him and the bear earlier. And he's always had these fears about him going crazy and hurting people that he cares about. So it's maybe trying to set up for a thing where he gets poisoned and then he does something like that. And some people he likes do almost get hurt in the ensuing chaos.
Yep.
So again, in the kind of... in the meta that the movie sets up...
And the other thing that I didn't like about this scene was the poor CG. Did anybody else notice that nothing was holding the other end of those ropes?
I noticed that he was still moving really far for things that were attached to other things.
No, but the ropes had tension. But every single ninja you saw had a pulled bow at the very end of the scene. Nobody was holding the arrows. The ropes. I was specifically looking. They just went off into nothingness.
Yeah, I did. They're kind of like...
They were very CG.
At the same time, I'm just
They
thinking...
did put a scene where one of the ninjas grabbed a rope and yanked, but the later shots don't show anybody holding into a rope.
But no,
Every ninja's got an arrow cocked to shoot again.
Even at the same time, these guys have turned into a veritable pincushion
Yeah.
of just ropes coming off of them that are tied off to nothing.
Yeah.
Because he's had like 12 of them shot in, and they're just ropes running off.
Yeah.
And he's still going for it, like, nah.
Yeah.
And then he's still going, and I'm like, what? How are you pulling those buildings that these should be tied to?
So then this leads us into something that's become unfortunately frequent, which is the overlong action movie climax.
Yeah.
This scene...
But the problem is too much is revealed during the action. I feel like usually what they do here is the bad guy monologues, you finally learn something, and then you have a big action scene at the end. This was like, I had to process a whole bunch of stuff, like, whoa, okay, what does this mean? And at the end. But,
yeah, so of course the giant robot suit of armor is something that they built for Yoshida, if you haven't guessed at this point, because he needs it in order to...
Basically, this is the world's most kick-ass life support system
Yeah.
you could possibly ask for.
And he wants it so that he can fight Wolverines, that he can forcibly take Wolverine.
Also, it's completely made of adamantium.
Yep.
He literally bought what is probably the world's supply of it.
Yeah.
And just built this one suit of armor.
Yes, specifically so that you
Well,
can
they did say he bankrupted the company. He probably spent most of it on the adamantium.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
He needed the adamantium sword so that he can cut open Wolverine's adamantium claws to get at his bone, because apparently the bone marrow is the place where that healing factor is.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I was like, the way to a Wolverine's power is through his bones. Okay.
On the other hand, though, that just looked really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was
I heard
there.
bone marrow transplants are really, painful. I can only imagine that having 3 of them or 6 of them happen at the same time with drills while you're conscious.
It should also be pointed out that there's another plot inconsistency here, because Wolverine gets away from him for a bit, where he's had one claw chopped off, and it's just kind of like adamantium with bone in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it doesn't grow back for a really long time. But then as soon as he gets out of the crazy drill harness that's drilling into the bones on his hands,
they
grow back like immediately, and he uses them to stab the guy in the face.
Yeah.
So, kind of an inconsistency with the healing factor. It wasn't a huge deal. There's not a lot to say about this scene because it just kind of wraps stuff up.
Yeah, they took the two B characters on both sides. They took Viper and they took Yukio and had them fight.
And then
Viper, like, sheds her skin for no reason?
It's part of her power from the comics. So, she makes... Again, there's one line that explains something really important. She says she's also immune to the poisons of man or something like that.
I remember that.
So when she dies, she can basically revive herself by peeling off her skin, and it's like she's new.
So she's like a snake phoenix.
Oh, okay. That's one way to put it, I guess.
Yeah, so...
That explains everything. If they had just called her a snake phoenix one time, I get it.
But they didn't.
No.
Well, they picked Viper instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, Viper gets taken out, and... I can't remember her name.
Yukio.
Mariko.
Oh, the one fucking reference they make to her being competent at anything other than being chased by people comes up at the very end of the movie.
Yeah, she suddenly comes out of nowhere with Wolverine's. Just like she.
They mentioned she was good at knives.
That was
she said we were the county champions. Him at bow and
her at knives. I forgot that entirely.
They said it only once.
They did say it once,
it.
And I remembered it, but I didn't remember it at the end, and it didn't click that's why when she threw Wolverine's claw, like, hey, that makes a really good throwing knife. Okay, I liked that.
Was Yukio that threw it. I was so confused.
No, it was Mariko.
It clicked with me the second she.
No, I
was
realized
like,
that those look like throwing knives because you got them held up here. I'm like, I wonder what you're gonna do with that.
So it wraps up things pretty nicely.
I like that.
Oh, except I feel like we can skip everything else and just get to the epilogue because the epilogue, or not the epilogue, but the epilogue.
Yeah, it's epilogue because it's
there's one more part. There's one more part about that fight scene that I did really like, and it was that Mariko is the hero because they made a mention about, like, do you think he chose you because you're strong or chose you because you're weak? And that implies, like, for throughout the movie, you thought that the grandfather, Yoshido, was leaving everything to her. And even her father implied that he was leaving everything to her because traits skip a generation, and her grandfather saw himself in her and wanted to leave the company with a competent, strong person that could guide it. Yes. But now Viper comes out and says, no, he did it because you're a weak person, and he could trust that you wouldn't screw up his plans when he went to Plan B to kill Wolverine. And then she decides, no, this is not my choice. And when she makes that choice, boyfriend thinks, if I can just convince her, then she'll be okay with this. But once she makes the choice and forcibly shows him, no, this is my choice, he goes along with it and helps her instead. I liked that. His character actually has a little depth here because it goes back and forth throughout the movie. He really loves and is devoted to her, but he's also devoted to her family. But at the same time, he thinks he's doing what's right for her, but when she demonstrates it forcibly by, like, taking his knife and stabbing him with it, no, then he's like, oh, I guess you really mean that. Okay, I'll help you now. So that was a good turnaround. He didn't actually turn into a bad guy. He had what was, to me, a believable change of heart there.
I don't know. He
and
was
I did like that.
Switching sides the whole movie. I thought
his intentions were always for the family,
and he was in on the grandfather's fake death. So he, for whatever reason, maybe it was orders, couldn't explain it to Mariko, I guess. Yeah. But I did like how she's like, no, I'm the strong one. She stabs him, picks up the knife, saves the day, because this whole movie she's been nothing but a plot device to get kidnapped.
So they've wrapped up a lot of really important things that they've set up earlier. They had the thing with the arrow, they had him fight this samurai, they had him fight another gianter samurai.
Yep.
They've given Mariko an arc, they've given this boyfriend an arc, it finishes the grandfather's arc, it finishes Wolverine's arc. You would think a really good place to end the movie. No. They decided they needed one more scene where they're all... Which...
It's just...
talking about that last scene, it sounds like we all have a lot of really good will towards this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess we're about to crap on some in a second. But I would like to say that there was a lot more to this movie than I was expecting, and while it's not the best executed or written or shot film that you will see this year, it's very good in a lot of areas, and it successfully strung us along on kind of the emotional ride that it wanted.
Yeah.
So it was very successful in that sense, and I do recommend seeing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, about that thing that we all hate.
What? Yeah.
So they're at an airport, and Mariko's given Wolverine a plane, and he can fly anywhere. And she's like, "Are you sure you can't stay?" And they kiss, and then he's like, "Yeah, I gotta go." And
he brings up the fact that he's a soldier and he's been away for too long. Yes. Like he's been punishing himself. And you get the impression that, okay, so he's talking about the fact that he left the X-Men after Jean Grey died, and he just left and went into the woods and was in exile for a while. Yes. So now he's a soldier that's been away for too long. He's going back to Professor Xavier, back to the X-Men, and that's going to lead into maybe another X-Men movie.
And then they sit down in the plane, and Yukio's going with him because she's his bodyguard, apparently, which was, cute. I like Yukio. I like Yukio's character. And she goes, "So where are we going?" And I expect him to say, I think Massachusetts is where?
Yeah.
He's going to be like, Massachusetts.
Is it Cambridge? It's somewhere right outside Boston, I think.
And I was like, all the comic book fans are going to get to go like, that's where the Xavier School is. That's a tip to the comic books. But instead, he goes, I don't know, let's just start with up.
In my head, I was like, what the fuck is that? Because I was expecting exactly the same thing. And in my head, I'm going, you can't just tell the tower you're going up. You have to file a flight plan.
It's like, Mr. Logan, the tower says that up is not a valid destination. They control air traffic all around the world, and we need to tell them where we're going.
This is not Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's golden elevator. You don't just go up.
No, we need to tell the place that we're going when we'll arrive so that they can have a runway ready for us. There's a lot involved.
We need some flight information.
Yeah. I mean, in bringing the realities of air traffic control into a comic book movie may not be the most pertinent thing to talk about, but...
No, but the scene already was broken, and that just made it worse.
The only reason that we were questioning it is because the movie did something that made us pop back into reality.
Yeah.
See, the time when people are most prone to nitpick a movie is A, if you've seen it a bunch of times and you can remove the emotional ride from it and actually view it objectively, or B, when a movie does something bad and it jars your immersion in that universe, and it brings you back into the real world, it makes you go, they would really need to file a flight plan with the tower.
Excuse me, but I'd like to point out that's not how that works.
Yes. and I give this movie credit for making me overlook a lot of really silly things by being generally well put together. But they really dropped the ball right at the end.
Yeah.
And then, of course, because it's a Marvel film, even though it's a 20th Century Fox film, there's a sting at the end, and it looks like they're setting up another X-Men movie.
Another X-Men where Xavier and Magneto are working together again.
Because it worked well in First Class. And
it also
goddamn
worked...
if there's one thing that we know, it's how to do the exact same thing to make money.
It also worked decently in X-Men 2. It wasn't a fantastic movie, but I thought the plot arc of that movie was okay.
Yes, but generally I think some executive at Fox was like, you know what worked good? When Magneto and Xavier worked on the same team.
Yeah. But also had tension because they were bad, because he was a bad guy working for them.
They worked together a lot, though, in the comics, I thought.
When Magneto's not busy being an asshole, yes.
Yeah. Because they have the same goal, but they disagree on how to get there.
Right.
Yes.
Is the thing.
They have different means to the same end.
Yes.
Have you ever seen the Magneto is Right pictures? So in conclusion, we had a lot of fun with this movie, and it's worth seeing. If you're a comic book fan especially, it's a fairly good comic book movie. If you're not a comic book fan and you didn't like the other X-Men movies, maybe not the best pick for you.
Although what we just did was a critique, so probably most of the people watching aren't going, oh, now that I've heard everything about it, I'm going to go see it. No. This is for people who have seen it, who want to hear what other people thought, I think.
Oh. I'm weird in that I don't care if somebody spoils the entire plot of something. I care about the execution. So I would watch something like this and then still go see the movie.
Yeah.
But anyway.
A well-executed film usually gets better with spoilers.
Yeah.
Because
someone is seeing things that you don't. And
Yeah.
you can look for them when you go and see it, and it adds to the stuff that you're catching.
Exactly.
So I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up.
Alright, that's the Wolverine. Next week, I think we're going to be seeing The Spectacular Now. I'm not sure. I know Adam doesn't want to see it.
No, I'll be out for next week.
Yes, that was our Wolverine slide from last week. Thank you, Jay. I didn't have.
We don't have a picture of it this time.
Because I don't.
The Spectacular Now. I don't know.
This guy.
I wish it was a musical.
Oh.
But
Oh God, no!
That's what it sounds
no,
like.
you'll be doing this by yourself. We're going to a musical.
So anyway, that's the tentative plan. We don't know. So join us next week for something.
But we know that the week after that is going to be Elysium.
Yes.
Oh boy,
Elysium looks good. I definitely am in for that.
Well, we'll go over that next week. Anyway,
We'll go over that next week.
Signing off. See you.
If only one of us could do a sideways flip to end the show.